Alright, hopefully we should be live. Couple minutes early, but should give us time to like set up all the markers and stuff. Gonna try something a little bit different on stream today, and I was going to talk about like how to handle ingress traffic and stuff on your network. I actually might need to lower my desk a touch to like look center and frame. Okay. So along with doing like normal streamy stuff, I'm going to be discussing like how to handle ingress. How to handle ingress traffic on your network and then deploy a service that's a good example of like why you shouldn't just expose everything on the internet. So yeah, got like another minute before we need to get going here. And there's a Miku in frame. There's a little doggo by my desk. She wants to help sniff the packets. Right, Miku? Did you sniff the packets? Yeah, her helps. Yeah. This is a pretty good frame. See, what colors of markers do I want? This whiteboard has been like the best cheap purchase I've made in a minute. Probably want black. Open Sense gets an orange. What's the caddy logo look like? Caddy logo. So caddy gets a green, and WireGuard gets red. Then lane gets black. So that should be all the markers we need. Probably just do blue for... Let's do blue and then like pink for scary traffic. Yeah. So let's do some color coding quick. Let's do naughty traffic right here. Budget traffic. What else do I need? I think everything else is just going to be other. So I think that's all I need for the... I need a bigger legend. So you folk can see it in the video. How about spicy traffic? I'm remembering that thing from show choir when I did it, where like you have to do things way bigger than you're used to, so the audience can actually see it. And I thought that was just gonna be for like gestures and enthusiasm, but apparently it's like writing stuff on a whiteboard too. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually start like simultaneously recording a video, doing a couple takes, and hopefully there will be some people in chat telling me like, hi Sleuth, glad to see you here. I'm gonna like answer your guys' question in the chat so I can hopefully get like good takes, an even better take because I'm getting live feedback. So I'm gonna start recording now and make really loud obnoxious claps. So sorry headphone users. I'm also ad-libbing all of this. I haven't scripted like anything, so this should be fun. All right. Also, part of this is coming from the Mrs. and I, Shelby in chat. The Mrs. and I talking about like, you know, you haven't really documented the home lab and you're having trouble staying awake on the car ride home, so we're going to talk about the home lab because hopefully that will keep you awake. We do that with a bunch of stuff. So, all right, I am recording. OBS is working. Feel free to drop questions in chat. It just might take me a few minutes to get to them. So yeah, you are now about to witness my creative process in the making. So I'm going to do a clap. And all right. Hey everybody, my name is Matthias Palmersheim with Shift Systems, and today I want to talk to you folks about how to handle ingress traffic into your network. We're going to go through basically like what's the ideal case, and then go into like more and more less ideal cases. So we're going to go through two types of traffic. So there's like legitimate traffic coming from you outside of your network. So legit traffic, we have it color coded as well. And then we have spicy traffic or scary traffic, whatever you want to think about it here. Spicy traffic. And then here is, in orange, we're going to have our firewall, because I like OpenSense, and that's actually their logo. So we're going to draw a big box here, and this is going to be the firewall. And then back here, we are going to have let's do rats. I need a better word for rat crap. So we have a remote access tool here. I know it means remote access Trojan. I also think it means remote access tool. And then we're going to have document or DMS or document management system. We're going to have Nextcloud. And we're going to have our issue tracker or bug tracker. So the goal of this is we want to have a way where we can have the right people access the right things at the right time, preventing the spicy traffic or the malicious actors from gaining access to it. So the ideal way to do this is reduce what's called our threat surface. So the fewer things we have to expose to the public internet, the better. And there are certain things that are much more suited to being exposed to the public internet than others. So there are things like SMB that are just both for security and for technical reasons that are awful going through a firewall. It's not designed to route through traffic, so the performance is going to be bad. Also, from a security perspective, it's not designed to function like this. Sorry, kid in the background. This is just going to be a super rough take, so I can kind of like get the cliff notes out of my head. So now we're going to have. So then there are things like WireGuard or SSH that are designed to be exposed to hostile actors and hostile services. So like it's designed to like filter out the spicy traffic and let the legitimate traffic through. And it has robust authentication mechanisms for handling it. So the best way to do this would be to use something like a WireGuard VPN on your firewall. So WireGuard, and then what WireGuard will do is allow the legitimate traffic to go through, and then WireGuard, or the VPN, is allowed to access all of the tools. The way I like to think about WireGuard or any sort of VPN is it's like taking an internet cable from the router and running it all the way to your device no matter where it is in the world. The way it's actually implemented is it encapsulates your traffic in an encrypted tunnel. So it shoves all your traffic through that encrypted tunnel, back to your firewall, and then onto your regular network. Now, this works if you're willing to set up a piece of client software on every device that needs to go to your network, or you have another firewall somewhere else at like another office, but you do basically have to set up software on each device that needs to access the network, or in the case of a site-to-site, each network that would need to access that. So that's clearly not ideal. So if you're hosting like customer web applications, it's not usually acceptable to have your customers like require having a piece of VPN software on their devices, and that's a very bad user experience. So what's the next best way to do that? I realize I forgot something. I need to make room for a CDN. So I'm going to actually stop the recording for a second, and I'm going to erase everything. Yeah, because CDNs are really cool, especially for web apps, because Cloudflare is like dirt cheap. Okay, so now we have more documentation and we can actually try this again. Again, any questions in the chat, feel free to drop them there. All right. We are now recording again. All right, hey everybody, my name is Matthias Palmersheim with Shift Systems, and today I want to talk to you folks about how to expose services to the internet on your network. There's a lot of people that want to access all the amazing things that they set up for their business or in their lab, but they don't want to be at their business or at home to access them. A really common use case for me is my wife and I store our grocery lists as a Getty issue, and we want to be able to access that at the grocery store and from our house in the same way with minimal effort. But we also keep like personal details and like private stuff we don't want the internet to see, so we want to make sure it's very well protected. So we're going to go through like what's the most ideal scenario, and then go through like, okay, so you can't do that, you can't do the next thing. So that way you can pick which option is best for you, but obviously giving preference to IT security. So we're going to have two types of traffic. So we're going to have traffic from our user, and he's coded blue for legitimate traffic. And we are going to have a malicious actor here. And we're just going to call him Evil Dude. So we have user and Evil Dude both trying to gain access to our services. The goal is going to be to grant access to, let's get the firewall up here. Firewall. We're going to make this a bit bigger. And then we're going to have our services. So I have my issue tracker. This is something I definitely want to protect. Issue tracker. We have our issue tracker. We're going to have our matrix server. And we want to also have our mesh central server. There are going to be other services here. Other services. So the goal is that Evil Dude is going to send all of his traffic from wherever he is at in the world, and we want to stop him from getting here. But what we want is that our user go here, and then he can get to the issue tracker, matrix, mesh, whatever other services he needs to, or they need to gain access to. So there's a few different ways to do that. The best way to do this is going to be using a VPN or a virtual private network. Now, you might have seen like a bunch of advertisements for things like NordVPN, it's another one, PIA or private internet access, or like the best one's Molvad, and they advertise like being to break through geoblocks and all this other stuff and protect your privacy. And it's using the same tool, and you can get some of the benefits of that with a VPN to your firewall, but it's using it to tunnel access here. So what VPNs do is, the physical analogy I like to use is, it's taking an internet cable from the VPN server, running it all the way back to your device and plugging it in. So it's making it appear as if all of your internet traffic is coming from the firewall in this case, or the VPN server, instead of coming from your normal internet connection. But in this case, since this is the firewall to your house, you gain access to all these private services. And you can even see this in some of those privacy VPNs. Like some of them offer like malware filtering, and that's saying that they run their own private DNS service that's only accessible to their customers. And so when you get on the VPN, you get access to those private services and when you're there. So VPN is going to be the best option. So that's going to be the best way to gain access to all of these services. So the VPN does is say, go on through, it says go on through user, so then user's traffic comes out through the VPN this way, gets rejected. So then the VPN rejects all the user because they cannot authenticate to this. There's a few different ways of doing that, one of which is WireGuard, which uses a public-private key setup. And then there's OpenVPN, or there's other SSL VPNs out there, but OpenVPN is the most popular, which uses the same technology as the little padlock in your browser window to verify that you are who you say you are. So gets rejected. Actually, we can do a little bit better with this and do so one give, actually I can make this bigger. I want to see issues. The VPN will respond, who are you? Or challenge the user to authenticate. So put a 1 here. The VPN will ask you, who are you? And there's a bunch of different ways to do this. Again, you can use PKI, which is how OpenVPN works, with a combination of a user and password, or something like WireGuard, where you have a public and private key, where it's like, I know you're, where they do a public-private key exchange to verify who you are. Who are you? So then 3 is I am so-and-so. Okay. Okay. I'm going to start over again and do better this time. Even better. Again, any questions about what's going on in the chat, feel free to ask them. I need to find my eraser too. What that thing? Darn eraser. Oh well. Stop the recording. My hard drive doesn't need this smoke right now. All right. So let's try this again. Hey everybody, my name is Matthias Palmersheim with Shift Systems, and today I want to talk to you about how to expose services from your private network to the wider internet. We're going to go through a few different ways to do this and some of the trade-offs with each of the solutions. So let's first talk about what the goal is when we're exposing public services. Usually the way most networks are structured is there's a firewall that sits between. We have a firewall here that sits between our services. So things like an issue tracker where I keep my grocery list because I need to go out and buy groceries, so that's a task. I need a matrix server so I can talk to all my nerd friends. I need, let's see, the issue tracker, matrix, and let's go with Mesh Central so I could give tech support to my customers and family. So here I am. And then we're going to have an evil dude. So the goal is to keep me, the legitimate traffic. I want access to all these services no matter where I am in the world, but I don't want evil dude to see what's on my grocery list or any of the private things I have in my home lab, or be able to like do anything malicious. So the most secure way to do this is using what's called the VPN. And you might have heard them from privacy ads and whatnot, but basically what a VPN does is it takes your internet connection, shoves it through an encrypted tunnel, and spits it out on the other end. So it makes you appear like you're in whatever network you're going on. So the way that looks like in this case is I will ask the VPN to let me in. So step one is the request to say, let me in. Let me in. The VPN will then respond VPN. Step two is the VPN asking, who are you? Then step three is going to be I am a legit user, or I should say, here's my key. This is my key. Then the VPN will finally let me in. And then forward me to the issue tracker. So why wouldn't I just expose my issue tracker straight to the internet? Well, one reason is this assumes that there's nothing wrong with my issue tracker. All the authentication here is perfect. And I use Gitty to track issues. It does an amazing job. It supports multi-factor authentication. There are instances of large public servers of it with private repos. But I want to be absolutely sure that evil dude can't go through the same process to get to it. So adding a VPN, along with having to deal with the authentication for the service, you have to authenticate to the VPN. So if evil dude says 1, let me in, to the VPN. The VPN will say, who are you? And then here's my key. And then option 4B, go away if I don't see your key. So what happens here is the legitimate user says, I would like access to this resource on this other side of the firewall. The VPN asks, who are you? I present my key to verify my identity. The VPN will then forward my traffic through. Now, here, Evil Dude does the same process. He says, let me in, and the VPN will ask, who are you? It'll give it a key that the VPN is not aware of or hasn't been told that this is a legitimate key, and get told to go away. Now, this is the most secure because, again, we get all of the security of something like OpenVPN or WireGuard, which is specifically designed to prevent hostile traffic from getting into your network and allow people to go in. They have apps for every platform, and they have robust authentication mechanisms that the user can customize. But the problem is that it requires me to have my key with me at all times. So I can't just directly say, hey, I want into this service. So this is obviously the most secure setup, but with most things, there's a trade-off with convenience and security. So let's say I want to expose something like Matrix. Now, Matrix is a federated protocol, and let's say there is a third actor called a remote user. Remote user. This remote user will need to communicate with my Matrix server. And as far as my VPN is concerned, Evil Dude and remote user are the same person. That's somebody who doesn't have a key and the right client software to authenticate to my network. So we need something that's a little less secure, but a little bit more convenient to go straight through the internet. So there's one thing we can do to separate out these services. So for the things we want to put on the internet, we can isolate them in what's called a DMZ, which is pretty much just a separate VLAN. DMZ / public VLAN. So these servers, since we're going to be exposing them to the internet, we want to block off these servers from the firewall. And now we need to come up with a different authentication scheme. So this flow will still work. I would like to get in through the VPN. But these two people, we can keep out Evil Dude from getting to my VPN, but remote user can go through here. So here we are going to set up, we are going to need to move Evil Dude around a little bit. And remote user to deal with this problem. So now remote user Evil, we're just going to call him Evil and Remote for short. Remote. So now Evil user and remote user. We want to let remote user communicate with the Matrix server. So we are going to put in some extra measures, since we can't use a VPN, to allow them to access the DMZ. So we are going to use a CDN like Cloudflare. I like Cloudflare because they're free, their API is amazing, So we're going to put Cloudflare in front of this, but we don't want to use the VPN to expose the service. We can either use NAT, or what I do is set up a reverse proxy. Reverse proxy. And then the reverse proxy is going to go to Matrix and Mesh Central. So here, the only way to get to the issue trackers through the VPN, but for these services on a segregated network, we'll go over why it's segregated in a second, that'll have a reverse proxy. So Cloudflare is going to connect to our firewall. And Cloudflare has things like, well, you have Cloudflare a bigger cloud, because Cloudflare does a ton of stuff. So Cloudflare will do things like DDoS protection. They have a web application firewall, which looks at the URL that it's going to and be like, all right, nobody puts a .. / in their URL. This is a directory traversal. Or nobody puts like SQL queries directly in their URL. Something's not going right here. There's also location rules and a bunch of other stuff. So now what can happen is evil user is going to try to go to Cloudflare, and Cloudflare can either challenge them with either JavaScript challenge, or Cloudflare can be like, go away. We think you're evil. So evil user gets blocked at Cloudflare. It never even touches the firewall. So here, instead of putting client software to verify the users there, we're using Cloudflare's knowledge base and all of their rules to verify that they're evil. So we can actually shorten this up and put some dots. And now our remote user is going to go through Cloudflare. Cloudflare is going to go through the reverse proxy. Actually, Mesh Central doesn't work. And then they can go and access Matrix. So now we have all the awesome things that Cloudflare can do. DDoS, WAF, all that good stuff, instead of a VPN software. So we can use all their DDoS protection, all their web application firewall features, something like that, to expose it to the reverse proxy on our firewall. And we can even set this reverse proxy to only accept traffic from Cloudflare if that's all we're exposing, all the way back to Matrix. But what if we have an application that can't fit within the confines of Cloudflare? So Cloudflare doesn't work well if you need long-lived TCP connections for things like large file transfers for Nextcloud. There's also some weird like WebSocket, or there's some things that Cloudflare doesn't work well with. Long-lived connections is one of them. Certain like real-time applications like a remote access tool don't necessarily play friendly with them. So how do we perform this process here? Well, we can replicate some of the features of Cloudflare on our firewall. So we can put tools on our firewall. We can put in geolocation rules or GeoIP rules. So this would be like the location rules here. We can put in CrowdSec, which is a really cool tool that will read through the logs of the web server, of SSH, of whatever it has access to, and it will perform a similar check. So now Evil Dude. So how do we do this for Mesh Central? So Mesh Central is a tool that can control remote client devices, and I don't want to set up multiple agents to help my grandma with her computer. That's really lame. So now Evil User will go to the firewall to request a resource. they will get stopped by these resources. Go away. Go away, evil dude. We don't like you. So evil dude will get told to go away by the GOIP rules and CrowdSec. We could do a whole other video on CrowdSec because it's amazing and the people that make it are super cool. But basically, you're from Russia. I don't support anybody in Russia. So I have a GYP rule that says go away, or CrowdSec can notice that, hey, this isn't the first web request this dude's made, and he's putting all those funny ... slashes and SQL queries in. I'm going to tell this person to go away for 4 hours, or this IP address to go for 4 hours. So now the remote user can go through here, and legit user will hit the reverse proxy and now gain access to Mesh Central. So now we have multiple ways, all traffic allowed. So now we have multiple ways to expose services. So let's talk about some of the pros and cons. So VPN is the most secure. That's its biggest pro. The other nice thing is that because it's the strictest for our authentication, it's more acceptable to allow all traffic to go through here. So here, if we go through the VPN, all traffic is, we can allow all traffic to tunnel through. So if I'm at my parents' house, I'm on vacation, and the Matrix server's wrong, something's going on with my issue tracker or the Matrix server, I can connect to the VPN, authenticate who I am, go through here, and SSH into the Matrix server. But when I do the reverse proxy, I'm only reverse proxying the web traffic, or the traffic that's needed to serve the application. So that way, if evil dude does break into the web server, he's only breaking into the web app, and he has multiple layers to go ahead. It's a concept called defense in depth. A good comparison I have in my head for that is martial arts training. So if you do any sort of like combat sport, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, all that other stuff, I don't train just how to deal with like situations where I'm being offensive. I'm learning how to protect myself at various stages of compromise. So if I'm in a neutral spot, I'm learning how to protect myself from somebody putting me in a vulnerable spot. If I'm in a slightly vulnerable spot, I'm learning how to protect myself from becoming more vulnerable. If I'm in a really vulnerable spot, I'm working on techniques to make things worse. But notice I'm making it harder for the attacker and putting more barriers in the way before they get God mode. So because this is the most strict, we can allow the most access. If we're using Cloudflare or just a straight reverse proxy to our services, what we need to do is we need to segregate this traffic off from here. So let's say we have a management service right here. We have like a free IPA or Windows domain controller. Domain control. We have our domain controller. We have other services. So we can go here. We can get to our domain controller for DNS and all that other good stuff for identity management. ID traffic. And then SSH. So now in this DMZ, we're not just allowing the DMZ to touch everything on the network. What's happening here is the traffic needed for identity management will be allowed through because I want to be able to administrate these services the same as I do like my issue tracker. But I don't want an attacker to be able to SSH out from here. So what this does is, let's say evil dude figures out a way to circumvent Cloudflare, to circumvent all of these measures on the reverse proxy, and compromise this application. all you can really do is compromise these two applications. They can't get to the issue tracker and they can't get to Mesh Central, or they can't get to the domain controller. So now an attacker has all of these barriers to go through. So instead of just putting something straight on the internet, we put all of these measures in place to make it harder for attackers. And what this does is it makes it economically not worth it. So theoretically, given enough time, given enough money, an attacker can compromise all of these things in some way. These could be like by finding novel exploits in all of the software in this chain. It could just be like telling Cloudflare I'm a bad person and they drop me as a customer. So the more walls you have in place, the more motivated somebody has to be to attack you. So if they have to compromise either a very strong, well-secured VPN, or they have to go through Cloudflare and a reverse proxy, and through GeoIP and CrowdSec rules, and they have to pop out to see my grocery list, most people probably aren't going to do that unless like you have a really interesting grocery list. So that's kind of the idea of how to expose public services. When in doubt, put it on a VPN. But if you have to host stuff for customers, or you're hosting a federated service like Matrix, using services like Cloudflare can be super helpful. And when those don't fit, please use things like GeoIP rules and CrowdSec to prevent people from getting in. And if you do have to expose services directly to the internet, please put them in a separate VLAN or DMZ, so that way you can prevent a bad thing from becoming much worse. I'm Matthias Palmersheim, this is Shift Systems, and have a great day. Alright, that was very long-winded, but I don't think it was bad. I'm going to put that on my Jellyfin server and see how I think about it later. And now we're going to get to the paperless setup. Alright. Camera actually looks pretty solid. Ah, Inception! Alright. Camera needs some work. Properties. Okay, cool. So I think the issue... Boom. I need to set up like a green screen or something. But this is good enough for now. Please let me know in chat if I need to... Yeah, my wife thinks my grocery list is interesting. And I need to reset an API key after the stream now. Oh well. Okay. So what we are going to do now is we are going to set up PaperlessNG. It's not really a stream until I expose secrets. I'm not super worried about it. I can actually remove that API key really quick. That's the worst part about like streaming your production environment, is that it's like really hard not to expose secrets. Wait, what? What? Billing. Profile, API tokens. Edit. All right, I'm going to go to Sorry about this. I need to kind of take care of it sooner rather than later. Profile. All right. So let's set up a PaperlessNG server. So PaperlessNG is one of those servers that you definitely don't want to expose straight to the internet. This is like way more serious than a grocery list. This is gonna have like the documents that say I own my car, which, you know, stealing a Honda Civic isn't something that I like super want people to be able to do because I have bad OPSEC. So, by the way, that key's rolled, so have fun trying to compromise it. So the way we're going to be setting up PaperlessNG is going to be using Docker Compose. And then I'm also going to go through like setting up SSL for it. Okay. Docker Compose. We don't want to do curl pipe sudo bash. There is a Docker Compose setup that we want to set up. Install Docker, Docker Compose. Is it? Nope. Should work with Podman Compose too, but let's see what's available. Do we want their example conf? Okay. Let's just go to their GitHub because I think they did have their Docker Compose files there. Docker, there it is. Maybe not. Administration. Pull the image from Docker Hub. Oh. Set all Docker setup. Okay. Consume. So morning. Could have swore they had like a Docker Compose setup. I had it pulled up too. That's the super annoying part. Build essential. God, where is it? Go to the Docker Compose on the project page. There it is. Okay. So we want to do Docker Compose with Postgres. So the reason I want to do Postgres is that like the application always ends up getting bigger than you think it does. So it's easier just to like set it up big and beautiful the first time rather than set it up with SQLite. So copy. I want to paste this part. I handle volumes through bind mounting, so that's how we're going to end up going through this. Alright, so we don't need this or this. We can go straight to here. Do a comment. Do paperless NGX. This should be an environment file. Speaking of putting secrets in a Docker Compose file, I'll show you actually how to handle this correctly. So basically what we do is do an env file. Let me do paperless postgres.env. So what this is doing is we get to define all this information in a separate env file. Alright, so that's fine. GCHR, restart unless stop. That doesn't matter. That's the web server. Oh, that's like the web application. We'll leave this for now. If we have enough time during the stream, we'll totally get rid of it and put it behind tree fake so we get SSL. Data, user share paperless. Yeah, so this gets the Docker compose.env. Postgres now, we'll put the secrets in there. So traffic gets 80443, env file. Yeah, it's fine. So volumes, we want to do, I do it the verbose way. So we do type, bind, and then we do source. I do it verbosely. Data, then target. Boom. So what this is saying, bind, source, media, target, and this will be the same. So the reason why we want to do it this way is that it's very verbose what's happening. Sleuth has a very good question in chat. What is Docker Compose and why should I be using it? Docker Compose is a way of organizing and orchestrating multiple containers at once. So if you have a very simple application that doesn't have any reverse proxy or anything like that, using like Docker Run or the Podman System D export is really nice. Using Compose though starts to make more sense when you have multiple applications, and it allows you to define multiple Docker applications in a single YAML file, and I'll show you in a second actually, but you can eventually say Docker Compose up or Docker Compose pull, and it'll perform operations on all the containers you have in your deployment. So instead of having to remember a bunch of goofy command line flags inside of a systemd command, you just remember to say at startup, run Docker Compose up, and read everything in a YAML file. Great question, Sleuth. Thanks for the feedback. So the source is going to be whatever I want export to be, and then destination, or target goes to there, do a bind mount, and then source. The other reason why I like doing the very verbose way of handling volumes is that I always forget, like, is it source target or target source? And when you're under stress and like things are broken, because that's usually when you're editing this, it's not to spin up services, it's when something goes horrifically wrong. It's way easier to deal with it at that point. So then we do target. Cool. So the documentation was using something called a Docker volume, which lets you, Docker volumes can or cannot be a good thing if you just want to throw all your volumes at some managed service or even something like ZFS, which you can run on a single host. Docker or Podman can say, oh, I see you're using ZFS. I'm going to create these volumes in the ZFS pool for you. Otherwise, you can just point it directly to a folder. So that's why I'm specifying a bind. A bind is just saying, take this folder on the host, mount it to here in the container. So I don't know where I want the sources yet, but okay. So I have curl running there to do a health check. So just to kind of break down what's going on with the deployment, this is a Django application. It has Redis for a broker. So Redis is a key value database. Well, Redis is, in this case, is probably just being used as a key value database. So it's really good for storing things in memory, and it can persist data to disk. But it's good at storing things like sessions. So who's logged into the application. It's used for like storing job queues. So if you end up having a horizontally scalable service, where you have like multiple workers that can do work on a system, you can use Redis to store like the work log of the things that need to be done. A worker can take a job off the queue, and then the next worker can take the next job off the queue. And because everything's stored in memory, it's super fast, and it's not tying up your database either. And then for the database, we're using Postgres. So since this is a Django application, it forces you to use their ORM, or object relational map, which basically takes, which translates between Python data structures and a database backend. And so the developer gets to think in data structures and support multiple database backends with minimal effort and offload that to the ORM, which I believe for Sleuth, you might know this better than me. Does Django use SQL Alchemy for the ORM? I forget. I don't use Django. I usually use like Flask or Fast API because they're leaner, but you don't get a bunch of the cool stuff you get for free. So the web server is the actual web application. So the Django app we're using depends on. So that's another cool thing to further answer Sleuth's question about why use compose. You can manage dependencies and add in health checks. So you can say, don't spin up the web server until the databases are up and running, because if the web server tries to spin up without a database or a Redis cache, in this case, it will just like crap itself and die right away, or have to restart multiple times, and that's no bueno. Here it has a health check, which is basically saying curl localhost 8000. If it can do that, great. So volumes in Docker are a way of managing storage. So the way containers work is that when they spin up, it spins up an immutable image of the container, which is just enough operating system to spin up the application and nothing else. And there's no persistent storage by default. So if you save data inside of a container and don't present a volume to it, it will just lose that information. So the way we deal with that is we create volumes and then mount those volumes into the container. So here we have the data volume, which I need to read up. I'm guessing I can put this in my flash storage. The media volume is probably going to be like where it actually stores the PDFs. Then export and consume, which might be the work queues. I'll have to read up on this. For now, I think I'm just going to put it on my butter pool. So we're going to do mount butter PaperlessNGX data, then mount butter PaperlessNGX/media. I should be using copy paste butter PaperlessNGX, because I bet one of these is spelled wrong. Ha! I knew it. One of them is spelled wrong. I had a comp sci professor that said, like, don't use copy paste, you'll get stuff wrong, but I also can't spell. So Sleuth hasn't done anything with Django or Flask. So A brief summary of the two is Django's an opinionated framework that tells you how to do everything. It has a prescribed way that you have to do things in Django. And if you try to do it other ways, you probably can do it. It's just going to be an awful time. Flask is much more minimal. So if you want to interface a Flask application with a Postgres database, you can use an ORM. Yeah. So you can use ORMs. You can use You can use ORMs, or you could just use like straight SQL commands to a database with a Python library. The trade-off is like if you really know what you want to do, and you want a really custom application, you could have a much leaner and usually more performant app. But Django just kind of lets you like bang out applications way faster, and it has a bunch of things like an admin backend built in for you. Yeah, Django's Shiftmon for websites. Um, so to elaborate that analogy better, Shiftmon is an observability stack that is, we choose the time series database for metrics, we choose the time series database for logs. We even make the decision that those two things should be separate and not use something like Elastic or Influx, which is good at one but not the other. We pick a front end for you, we pick alerting tools for you, and user management. Yeah. So Django gives you like user management. It gives you a way to interact with the database. And you don't have to make those decisions for you, but the trade-off is you can't customize things as much. Django is more restrictive than Shiftmon, but that's a pretty good analogy. I haven't written in Django. I've only done Flask and Fast API, so. But from what I've heard about applications, that's kind of what's going on. And it looks like we don't have to persist data with Redis. Yeah, cool. We're going to change this to be PaperlessNGX.yaml. Awesome. We're going to leave this here. All right. So we need to make our environment files, and then we need to make our environment files, and we need to make a directory for all this stuff. Mount, butter, PaperlessNGX. And Sleuth also disagreed with my college professor. I do too, but copy paste has bit me in the butt too. I've also lost a lot of times to my inability to type, and humans doing repetitive tasks reliably I don't usually bet on that. It was just funny to always hear him talk about that. So we need okay, so we need paperless Postgres, nvim, paperless-postgres.env. Nope. Or actually, we're going to get rid of like everything besides the web server. Oh, there it is. All right. Yeah, using Vim is like, you definitely gotta commit to it super hard. So I'm just gonna use default creds for now. I will switch these when people aren't watching me, because I already have to deal with one secret I have to rotate after this, so. All right. So along with that, should probably zoom in. Docker compose env. I usually like to copy the comments in, because usually there's like some documentation. PaperlessNGX.env. justice key to make it plain. Choose paperless available publicly. Should be a very long sequence of random characters. You don't need to remember it. Paperless URL. This is required if you are exposing paperly on a public domain. Yes, Sleuth, you're a hero for using SSHFS and not SSHing using VS Code. Because if you spin up SSH, or if you use the like remote edit thing through VS Code, you actually spin up like an entire VS Code server there, which is like a gigabyte node app, and it pollutes your home directory. Using Sleuth's approach, you get to not only like avoid spinning up a VS Code server on the SSH target, you also get to keep your environment the same. Because you're spinning up a separate server of VS Code, you lose like all your extensions. So if you're a developer that has like 20 LSPs, you're spinning up a ton of RAM, and you have to replicate that setup multiple times. Or log into GitHub a bunch, and probably put a GitHub secret on an SSH target. So yes, use SSHFS. Gonna do Chicago because I'm Central Time, and the cornfield I live in does not support that. We don't have to worry about these two. What the heck do you set like the database username and password? It's kind of where I'm curious. Alright, I'm gonna edit that token off camera really quick. Nvim, traffic. Alright, so now let's stop the shiftmon service, system CTL, stop. Or not shiftmon, podman, startup, actually, and then I'm going to change all of this nonsense. So it spins up in its own file until I like it. And then I'll restart the service. Cat. So I want to take from PaperlessNGX all the way down to traffic. Oh, okay. So that's how that's going down. So cd mount butter docker compose.yaml. Copy the top of the docker compose.yaml. It's using Postgres. Version 3 services. Yay! The paperless, I wonder if you have to do like paperless DB user. But, oh yeah, this is something super cool you can do with ORMs too, is sometimes they have database migration tools built in. And Sleuth, you are right. I do plan on like cleaning up my compose files at some point, um, and like setting it up so everything's on a separate network, and then Trafic has access to everything. I'm aware that should be done. That's on my roadmap. Um, and again, that's another. This is a bad excuse to use VPNs, but it makes you more comfortable doing dumb stuff like putting all your compose stuff in one file. It basically obfuscates your poor network security because they have to get through like Cloudflare and a reverse proxy before they see you set up a flat network on the other end. Um, Obviously, as you get smarter and more mature in your environment, using VLANs and separating out Docker networks and stuff like that is something you should always be striving to do. So yes, Sleuth, you are right. I might have to hit you up for help on that. Also, thanks for liking, showing up, enjoying the video, everybody. Getting really good feedback tonight. Thank you. Okay, so this should all work theoretically. And it's probably just going to try to hit like the default this underscore db. Okay, yay. Sudo move mount margarine jellyfin paperless start up. Yay, that works. So we're going to do nvim PaperlessNGX.env. Then what was it? Whatever I did, not that. So we want to set paperless under db user equal to paperless underscore db host equals paperless db pass is going to be. It's always fun doing Docker Compose with other stuff. Because like they do it in a way that works for them and on their machine, and if you copy paste it, it'll work in a greenfield environment. But if you have brownfield environments, things get weird. Paperless. DB host. And then there's the dumb like broker stuff too that's in there. Wait, sudo nvim. What? No! 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 I was not root when I edited this. Well, that sucks. Alright. Nvim paperless ngx. So we got DB host. I think I know why this is there. Or it's not secret. No. Because you should be able to do, like, slashes? I don't know. Docker environment files get super jank with certain special characters. And, like, which quotes actually escape them is always fun. Okay. So now we should be able to go, like, here up to PaperlessNG. Broker, so we need to do version 3 and then services there. We don't have volumes or networks defined in this case. We'll get there, sleuth. Oh yeah. So Sleuth is talking about like container devs not having good permission set up, and it's super annoying. Yeah, and a lot of developers just assume Docker's running as root. If you're running Podman, so you can take advantage of like rootless containers. So if you break out of the container, we're into this situation, except instead of networking, it's with users. We're like, hey, I broke out of the container, but I broke out of the container as an unprivileged user that can just spin up that application. You don't pwn the physical host. So in this case, if like somebody found a bug in the Django app, they broke out, but if they break out into the paperless user, they don't break out into root on the system and can break into like the Shinobi box on the network. Yeah. So it sounds like if you want to use rootless, use Podman, and if you want to bind to the Docker socket because you're using like Woodpecker CI or something like that that needs to spawn other containers, use Docker. Don't use Woodpecker CI with Podman. Containers will just die. It sucks. So I have like one Docker host that spins up Woodpecker, and that's it. Because Woodpecker's good enough, it deserves Podman. Or it deserves getting whatever container environment it wants. Alright, so this should work. And I'm going to get rid of the PaperlessNG stuff, and I'll start figuring out how to punch holes in it correctly. Alright. Podman, compose, up. Oh, poop. Redis data not defined. So Redis does have a volume. Type bind source mount butter paperless ngx target slash data Redis. The other thing, wait, oh my gosh, this is the best container developer ever. They're the best container developer ever. They actually put the full URL for the containers that they're pulling in. So something that sucks is that Docker If you use Docker, it will automatically assume that it's pulling from docker.io for the container registry and not like a custom one. And you are correct, Sleuth, about Redis not needing a container. I haven't done a ton of reading, so I don't know if that's a bad idea or not. I'm just doing what the example documentation does for the most part. Yeah, it's really interesting to see like all the stuff Redis can do and all the things people don't like, and people still continue just use it mostly for like a cache or a key value store. It is really good at that, Sleuth. You are in fact right. Oh, I still suck. Line 33. I need to set up my like NeoVim shenanigans for root. What is it angry about? So it said something about line 33. Line not oh. Mount Butter 16. Oh, okay. On line 16 and 17. Set number. Oh. Space OP. So this is the cool thing about Docker Compose. I didn't have any of these containers pulled down. So what Compose does, it'll like see all these images needed go. So it'll pull them all up. And it will spin up the application for you. It doesn't update them, but there is a command called Docker Compose or Docker or Podman Compose Pull, where it will essentially. Yeah, I didn't set an environment variable correctly. Depends on broker. PaperlessNGX. Is it just paperless Redis? Yeah, paperless Redis. Okay, cool. And now to spin down all those applications, Podman, compose down. So now everything should be happier. Could not translate paperless DB to address. Name or service not known. Actually, because I'm going to be a good boy, I should just be able to leave it be DB and do this. Sudo podman compose down. So compose down will tear down all of the containers, and then it'll spin up. What the hell? Well, that's not good. Yikes. Let's check. All right. So let's go to. I might have to hop off. Something's popping up at the day job, and I've been on for like an hour and a half. But I should be able to get this figured out pretty quick. Let's figure out where stuff went wrong. Oh. I think I know what's going on. Move Postgres. Sudo nvim paperless Postgres. There. Sudo nvim postgres.env. Okay, so that looks good. Nvim db gets postgres.env. It gets mounted. Podman. Let's see if that fixes it. Oh, that is a good point. There it is. Thanks, Sleuth. Alright, the above exception, yuck. Django params base.py, the above exception. Port 5432 connection refused. Is the server running? Okay. So sudo podman I'm actually going to show something super cool. I'm pulling up Cockpit so I can see all the containers spin up and down. Image of the hour traffic. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. So now we can actually see Cockpit spin everything up, and it is boot looping. Postgres auth method trust allow all. Database initialized super user. Password is not specified. Okay. So now podman compose down. So something is messed up where Postgres, it wasn't configured correctly. So nvim postgres.env. And I wonder if it doesn't have nvim. I think I know. Yep. Okay. Mount butter PaperlessNGX. Okay. Now hopefully all the DBs are. Crap! It's boot looping again. Logs. Postgres auth method and super user password is not specified. Postgres password to not an empty value. Woof. So sudo podman compose down. All right, so DB. Rat Postgres env and Docker. Let's make sure I have the file spelled right. Yeah, what the hell? Postgres Docker env file. Use environment variables from a file. Postgres user. Oh, I know what it is. This is gonna look really dumb. PaperlessNGX.env. Oh gosh, so dumb, so dumb. Sudo nvim docker compose.yaml. So it should just be able to be postgres.env. I do not understand why the CMV file isn't working. Podman compose F to see the logs from the container. Yes. Sleuth is saying there's a command line method of inspecting it too. I just didn't want to pop open another terminal, and I like showing off cool tools. Let's hope we suck differently this time. What the hell? SSH. I have another server. Cat opt. Crap. Opt Gitty. Opt Gitty. Cat Postgres. Okay. So I add another application where I have a similar setup going. Sudo nvim.postgres. Paperless. Cat docker compose. Okay, so all the files were just the local host. I don't know what's going on there. What the hell? Oh, the tail-50, thank you so much. I may or may not have vomited lots of shiftmon logs in my terminal from that before. What's going on here? Move. So let's put these back, because I don't necessarily care. Move. So that didn't help. Nvim sudo nvim docker compose. It's under volumes, env file. Postgres env. I wonder if the quotes are goofing it. And it just needs to not have those. Come on. Podman logs F. The issue is getting Podman logs to work with this is not always fun. But then the containers, yeah, it's fun. Paperless NGX DB1. So like the reason why it's tricky to use logs right here, podman logs, is the container keeps like, oh, it actually is following. Cool. All right. So now we can do sudo podman compose down, and now it'll stop spewing. Okay. Database is uninitialized, super user password is empty. I guess, is it getting launched with the wrong arguments? Integration. So it is getting volumes. So I think I can do like sudo podman that inspect will show all the arguments. Inspect. Does it show args, postgres, entry point, state? Oh my gosh, yay. Less. Crap. View, Docker, environment, variables, while running. What the heck? View app at runtime. Is there a way to view that? In a container you do, Sleuth. So if you're, from my experience, the way you configure Postgres and MySQL inside of Docker containers or OCI containers is you specify the username and password inside of a environment file, so it doesn't know who the root user is. All right. So Sleuth, I just checked Element. I'm trying to get it to serve out of an environment file, but we can. So I would prefer not to have secrets in the file. So like I can edit it on stream and show you what's going on. But we can do that just to get PaperlessNGX up and running. I wonder if I like spelled the env file wrong or something stupid like that. Oh my god. This is so dumb. This is the dumbest thing ever. Sudo podman. This is it. I'm gonna be so mad. I'm gonna be so mad. I think it's env underscore file. Okay. Oh god, this is so dumb. So I had env hyphen file, not env underscore file. Holy hell. If you ever wonder what life is like a developer, SRE, DevOps engineer, that you get like 99% of everything right. You have like a colon, a tab instead of a space, some goofy, dumb nonsense. Yeah. If I was smart like Sleuth and used SSHFS, I wouldn't be having this problem right now. Alright, so now if I do if I have the firewall on. 10003. Okay. What the heck is the default password? Build the image yourself. Script paper. I just want to get to the web UI and call it a day. Password. Did you follow the install instruction? It creates the admin user for you. Alright, just because. Paperless, and create this. There's an environment variable, apparently, that sets this for you. Oh, okay. So I need to be able to interact with the shell. So now if I SSH into Zeek, all right. CD mount butter. Yeah, do that as root next time. For the downside of being able to run containers rootless. Local user bias at shift we'll do local user at shiftsystems.net. Awesome. Okay. So hopefully now should be able to do local user. We have paperless. We have paperless. Oh God, no. So kind of going back to this from the beginning of the stream. Let me toggle the scene. Okay. So this is where PaperlessNG would live. This would be the things only accessible on the VPN, on the privileged network, not in the DMZ where it could get wrecked by the world. And also off stream, I'll populate it with like actual secrets and whatnot like that. I'll probably end up blowing it up once I get it working behind a reverse proxy and kind of happy with everything. This is as far as I kind of wanted to get, and I need to answer some like day job stuff and probably have some dinner. It's getting late. But yeah, if you have any other questions, I'm super excited you guys showed up and watched the stream. It's really fun doing this for you. Hey, it only took an hour, and like half of that was me not doing env_file. But yeah. Thanks for coming tonight. It was really fun streaming for all of you, and have a great night.